From the very beginning, this story stopped being about a poor girl entering a rich school. It became about who gets to love her, and who refuses to let go. Jandy never asked to be noticed. She only stepped forward to save a student who was ready to end his life after receiving the terrifying F4 red card. That single act of courage exposed Shinhwa Academy's darkest secret, and instead of rewarding her bravery, the school tried to bury it. A scholarship, in exchange for her silence. But that silence didn't protect her. And that's when Gu Junpyo, the feared leader of F4, noticed her. What started as curiosity turned into obsession. For the first time in his life, Junpyo fell hard, not for a girl who feared him, but for one who stood up to him. There was only one problem. Jandy's heart wasn't looking at Junpyo. It was quietly drifting toward Ji-hoo, gentle, broken, kind in a way Junpyo could never be. Ji-hoo didn't force his presence. He listened. He protected. And without realizing it, Jandy found safety in him. That's where everything went wrong. Because Junpyo doesn't lose. And he doesn't step aside. As Jandy's feelings pull her closer to Ji-hoo, Junpyo tightens his grip, using power, pride, and fear to stop what he cannot control. This is no longer just about love. It's about possession, jealousy, and what happens when someone who has everything realizes the one thing he wants may never be his. The moment Jandy stepped into Shinhwa, she became a target. Bullied, humiliated, and finally stoned with tomatoes by the entire school. She should have broken. She didn't. Tomatoes explode against her skin. The blast of a fire extinguisher knocks the air out of her lungs, and she collapses, unable to stand, unable to fight back anymore. The crowd that once watched her in silence now actively enjoys her destruction. But this time, someone stops it. Junpyo storms through the chaos, shouting at the students to get away from her, ordering them to stop as if his voice alone can undo what has already been done. He kneels, lifts Jandy into his arms, and apologizes, not loudly, but desperately. He tells her he believes her now. He believes she never lied about the pictures. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Jandy isn't alone. Junpyo takes her to his house, a place filled with space and silence, and carefully begins tending to her wounds. He cleans her feet and legs, methodical and gentle, as if afraid she might break again. When he reaches her face, his hands suddenly hesitate. He grows flustered, embarrassed by how close he is, and quickly tells her to wipe her own face instead. The boy who rules a school can't handle the weight of her vulnerability. Elsewhere in the house, Oh Min-ji sits with F4, finally telling the story she has carried since childhood. She talks about kindergarten, about a young Junpyo who bullied her and cruelly told her she would never be his wife because she was ugly. She explains how those words shattered her confidence so deeply that she couldn't even leave her house. How she moved to Germany for 3 years. How she chose surgery after surgery, reshaping herself again and again, just to become someone Junpyo might look at. She asks him directly if she is beautiful now. Junpyo says nothing. That silence answers everything. Later that night, Junpyo returns to Jandy's side. He cleans her wounds once more, slower this time. Jandy falls asleep while he works, exhaustion finally winning. When he finishes, he tucks her in and kisses her forehead, a quiet promise without words, before leaving the room. The next morning, Jandy wakes up alone at a massive dining table and eats breakfast in silence. When she finishes, the servants surprise her by returning all her belongings. Everything that had been replaced with identical copies is brought back. Everything, except her bike. It's the only thing they couldn't replace. At the same time, Junpyo is at Jandy's home, eating dinner with her family, blending into a world he never truly belonged to. Back at school, a screen flashes images of Oh Min-ji before and after plastic surgery. Cruel comments ripple through the crowd. One of the girls sneers that plastic surgery hurts too much to do more than once. Jandy snaps. She stands up and calmly points out that Miranda's eyes, Ginger's nose, and Sunny's teeth were all bought with money. She says that when these people want something, they simply buy it, including beauty. As she turns to leave, she runs into Min-ji, who coldly says she won't apologize for anything she's done. Jandy slaps her. Again. And again. Min-ji leaves the school for the last time, exposed and defeated. Junpyo then steps forward and announces to the entire school that he and Jandy are officially dating. He makes it clear that hurting Jandy means challenging Gu Junpyo himself. Power shields her now. But before the moment can settle, Ji-hoo appears and calmly says that he objects. At home, Jandy finds her apartment filled with expensive furniture Junpyo bought without asking. Furious, she storms into F4's lounge, where Junpyo is absorbed in a video game. To get his attention, she unplugs it. She tells him that he doesn't get to turn her home into a moving center without permission. He asks what she doesn't like, promising to exchange anything she wants. Jandy explodes, saying this isn't how relationships work for her. Junpyo quietly admits he's never had a girlfriend before. Later, in the stairwell, Ji-hoo tells Jandy he came back intending to ask her on a date. Fate keeps pulling her in different directions. On her way to work, Jan-D stops a rolling coin, believing it's lucky. It turns out Jun-pyo dropped it on purpose. He insists she ditch work, and when she refuses, he forces the issue. He demises everyone out of an entire shopping mall just for her, buys her clothes and accessories, and then suddenly rushes Yi-young to pull Jae-yul away from work, lying that Jan-D was in an accident and that her parents had already been informed. Soon, everyone is gathered near a private jet. Jun-pyo announces they're going on vacation to the Metro Islands. Jan-D is furious, pointing out he never asked her permission or spoke to her parents. Jun-pyo calmly explains that he already did both, and that he brought Jae-yul along because he knew Jan-D would react exactly like this. On the island, they explore together. At a small shop, a local girl tells Jan-D to give a flower to the person she loves. Later, in a dreamlike fortune-telling scene, Jan-D is told that her husband and soulmate are not the same person, and that she will lose something important to her as a woman. The warning lingers. Yi-young and Jae-yul spend the day sightseeing, taking tourist photos and climbing hills. Yi-young quietly says it's only a matter of time before something goes wrong between Jan-D and Jun-pyo. As the sun sets, Jan-D and Jun-pyo walk along the beach and arrive at a table magically set for two. Jan-D calls him a genie. Jun-pyo grows jealous, thinking another man exists. Jan-D explains there are three things a genie can never do: take someone's life, bring someone back to life, or force someone to fall in love. After a video call with her parents, Jan-D says she wishes her parent could visit a place like this one day, and Jun-pyo promises to bring them to the island someday. Just when Jan-D thinks the island night cannot get any more overwhelming, Jun-pyo suddenly says they should get to the point, and starts taking off his clothes, and in that single moment, her mind completely spirals. Every possible worst-case scenario crashes into her thoughts at once. Her heart races, her face burns, and panic takes over before she can even speak. But just as quickly as the fear arrives, it disappears, because Jun-pyo casually steps back wearing nothing more than his swimsuit, completely unaware of the chaos he just caused. Realizing she has been fooled, Jan-D snaps back, decides she will not let him win, and pretends there is a snake slithering through the water near his leg. Jun-pyo screams and bolts away without hesitation, and for the first time on the trip, Jan-D laughs freely, feeling like she finally gained a small victory over him. Later that day, while everyone is enjoying the sun and the water, Ji-yul notices something is off. Jan-D, who had been swimming calmly, suddenly looks like she is struggling, and before anyone can react properly, panic spreads through the group. Jun-pyo freezes, unable to move, forced to watch helplessly as Ji-hoo dives into the water and pulls Jan-D to safety. In that moment, Jun-pyo's weakness is exposed, and the reason for it comes flooding back in a painful memory. When he was only 8 years old, he was kidnapped, trapped inside a car that plunged into water, leaving him terrified and powerless. Since that day, water has meant fear, not freedom, and no amount of wealth or authority has ever been able to erase that trauma. As night approaches, Jun-pyo tries to regain control the only way he knows how, by creating perfection. He personally oversees the dinner preparations, correcting the chefs, adjusting every detail, and setting up a private table just for him and Jan-D. He watches her closely as she eats, urging her to enjoy everything, hoping the food, the effort, and the moment will speak for him. But across the table, Ji-hoo sits quietly, unable to hide his frustration, knowing he could never give Jan-D something like this. The feeling becomes too heavy, and eventually he stands up and leaves, choosing distance over pretending everything is fine. The night continues with music, laughter, and lights, and just when the celebration seems to end, Jun-pyo snaps his fingers and fireworks explode across the sky, filling the island with color and sound. Before Jan-D goes to bed, Jun-pyo visits her room one last time, holding a small anklet he bought earlier. He gently places it in her leg, tells her not to lose it, and in that simple request, pours more meaning than he realizes. Unable to sleep, Jan-D wanders out for a midnight walk and runs into Ji-hoo. Under the quiet sky, she asks him about Paris, and for once, he speaks honestly. He tells her that being there made him realize how empty his life had become, sitting alone in an apartment, waiting for Seo-hyun, and losing himself in the process. He pulls out the flower meant for the person he loves, but Jan-D refuses it, insisting it belongs to Seo-hyun. Just before she leaves, Ji-hoo pulls her into a sudden hug, whispering that he is cold and cannot bear it anymore, and Jan-D walks away confused, shaken, and emotionally torn. Rain begins to fall as she rushes back, only to find Jun-pyo waiting for her, clearly worried. He scolds her gently, telling her not to swim alone and not to wander off at night, his concern slipping through despite his usual roughness. But even with his protection, something has already shifted. The next morning, Ji-hoo appears at breakfast wearing the anklet around his wrist. Jun-pyo notices immediately, while Jan-D, still in her room, realizes in horror that she has lost it. When Jun-pyo later points out that it is missing from her ankle, she lies, saying she left it behind to keep it safe. But the truth surfaces during a volleyball game when Jun-pyo casually told Ji-hoo that the bracelet does not suit him. Ji-hoo calmly removes it and hands it back, explaining that it belongs to Jan-D and that she dropped it the night before. From that moment on, Jun-pyo loses all focus, recalling the moment she lied. Before he realizes, he receives a hit to the face, and storms away, unable to hide his anger or jealousy. Out of frustration, Jun-pyo follows Ji-hoo out onto the water in a small boat, watching him from a distance until Ji-hoo turns back toward shore. Before Ji-hoo can leave again, Jan-di catches up to him and asks if she can join him fishing. Meanwhile, Jia-yul and Yi-young spend time together on a paddleboat, talking about soul mates. Jia-yul believes deeply that they exist, while Yi-young dismisses the idea, hiding his emotions behind indifference. Trying once more to win Jandi's heart, Junpyo takes her on a helicopter ride, shows her a place he calls his heart, and finally confesses that he likes her, openly and sincerely. But even after hearing this, Jan-di cannot quiet her conflicted feelings. News soon spreads that Seo-hyun may be engaged to the future Prime Minister of France, and everyone knows what that must mean for Ji-hoo. When Junpyo later tries to kiss Jan-di, she stops him. Confused and overwhelmed, she runs to Ji-hoo instead. He hugs her, she tells him to be happy, and in a moment filled with regret and longing, Ji-hoo kisses her. Jan-di does not pull away. Junpyo witnesses everything. Rage and heartbreak collide as he punches Ji-hoo, tells Jan-di she has seen who he truly is, and throws the anklet into the water before walking away. By morning, Junpyo is gone. The island feels colder, quieter, and heavier with unspoken consequences. Tension hangs between Jan-di and Ji-hoo, made worse when Ji-yul explains the true meaning of the anklet, that it is only given to the person you want to be with forever. Back at school, Ji-hoo and Jan-di talk in the stairwell, writing messages in chalk, quietly acknowledging how devastated Junpyo must be. That is when Ji-hoo finally realizes the truth. Jandi's heart has already chosen Junpyo, even if she cannot admit it. The next day at school, Junpyo publicly announces that Ji-hoo is expelled from F4 and that both Ji-hoo and Jan-di will be expelled from the school within a week. The girls turn on Jan-di, blaming her for everything, accusing her of exploiting Junpyo's kindness. Ji-hoo steps in, taking responsibility and promising Jan-di he will find a way to protect them both. At home, Jandi's family celebrates the attention Ji-hoo brings to their business, unaware of the emotional storm brewing. Among F4, lines are drawn. Yi-young sides with Junpyo, telling Ji-hoo he crossed a line. Woo-bin defends Ji-hoo, but Junpyo threatened with removal if he speaks again. And with friendships fractured, hearts broken, and power turned into punishment, the stage is set for consequences that none of them are ready to face. Jan-di, desperate to stop things from going any further, tries to speak to Junpyo at school, but he avoids her completely. The moment he sees her approaching, he turns away, jumps into his car, and speeds off. Refusing to give up, Jan-di hops on her bike and somehow reaches his house before him, still clinging to the hope that if she can just talk to him face to face, she can fix everything. But Junpyo refuses to listen. He jumps back into the car and drives off again, leaving Jan-di standing there in frustration. She chases after him on foot, breathless and emotional, until a stranger suddenly pulls up beside her and orders her to get in the car. With no time to think, Jan-di climbs in, and what follows is a chaotic chase through the streets. The car swerves sharply and cuts Junpyo off, forcing him to stop. The driver jumps out, flips effortlessly through the air, and begins beating Junpyo with a stick, shocking everyone involved. It's only then that the truth is revealed. The mysterious stranger is Gu Junhee, Junpyo's older sister. Completely unimpressed by her brother's behavior, she invites Jan-di back to the Gu household despite Junpyo loudly insisting she is not welcome. That night, Junhee, Jan-di, Yi-young, and Woo-bin sit down for dinner together. Junpyo sulks and refuses to eat, but Junhee dismisses him coldly, remarking that no one has ever died from skipping a single meal. As the conversation continues, Junhee speaks honestly with Jan-di, explaining that for people born into wealth, real friendships and genuine love are rare and fragile things. The fact that Junpyo has friends like F4, she says, is nothing short of a miracle. Their mother, however, sees things differently, believing that relationships are unnecessary distractions. Meanwhile, Ji-hoo asks Junpyo to meet him at a movie theater, where Ji-hoo is watching a film the two of them have shared countless times together. Ji-hoo recalls that they've seen it 10 times, but when he tells Junpyo that he intends to protect Jan-di no matter what, Junpyo snaps back coldly. As he walks away, he corrects him with quiet cruelty, saying that if Ji-hoo were truly his friend, he would remember that they watched it 11 times, not 10. The next day, Junhee storms into Shinhwa Academy and interrupts Junpyo as he threatens the principal, demanding Jan-di and Ji-hoo's immediate expulsion. Calm but firm, Junhee tells him that if he fires the principal, she will personally take over the school herself. Before Junpyo can react, she grabs him by the ear and drags him out, ordering Jan-di and the rest of F4 to follow. Back at the Gu Junpyo house, Junhee lays out her solution. Junpyo and Ji-hoo will compete in 3 randomly selected sports, and whoever wins 2 out of 3 will decide the outcome. If Junpyo wins, he gets his way. If Ji-hoo wins, he stays in F4, and both he and Jan-di remain at Shinhwa. Everyone votes on whether this is fair, and the decision passes 5-1, with Junpyo standing alone in opposition. The balls are drawn in order, Jan-di, Ji-hoo, then Junpyo, and the first challenge revealed is horse racing. While training, Junpyo falls from his horse the day before the race, but stubbornly declares that he will still win no matter what. During the race itself, he reaches a fork in the road. One path is longer but safe for the horse. The other almost guarantees victory, but at the cost of the horse's future. Without hesitation, Junpyo chooses the shorter path and wins, only to later learn that the horse will never race again. As Ji-hoo returns defeated, Jan-di shares a gentle moment riding the horse Junpyo rode, while Junpyo stands alone, haunted by the price of his victory. The second challenge, chosen by Ji-hoo, is car racing, a cruel twist, considering Ji-hoo's deep trauma from a childhood accident that killed his parents and left him the sole survivor. Even starting the car becomes a struggle. Jan-di confides in Ji-yul at work, admitting how worried she is and wishing Ji-hoo wouldn't sacrifice himself for her. Her boss sends her off with porridge, urging her to comfort him. When Jan-di begs Ji-hoo to stop, he tells her quietly that he's not doing this for her. He's doing it because he wants to. Nearby, Junpyo sees them together during his own practice session. He loses control of his car and spins out in anger. In separate locker rooms, Woo-bin begs Junpyo to let this end, while Lee-young delivers the same plea to Ji-hoo. As Ji-hoo leaves, Ji-yul asks if he has a hidden card. Knowing Junpyo is watching, Ji-hoo hugs Jan-di tightly, asks her to stay still as this is their winning strategy, and then kiss her forehead. In a voiceover, he apologizes to Junpyo, saying he only wants to protect her. During the race, Junpyo could not concentrate as the moment Ji-hoo kissed Jan-di keeps flashing his memory, and out of jealousy and pain, Junpyo loses control again during the race, handing Ji-hoo the victory. Back in the F4 lounge, Young and Woo-bin quietly talks about how quickly Ji-hoo and Jan-di seem to be moving. The final challenge is revealed to be swimming, forcing a compromise since Junpyo cannot swim. He disagrees, but his sister gave him two options: either he continues with the competition or Ji-hoo wins instantly. It becomes a double relay, Young and Woo-bin versus Ji-hoo and Jan-di. As Junpyo tracks the times obsessively, Ji-hoo and Jan-di encourage each other in the water. Ji-yul asks Young to throw the match, but he refuses. When Jan-di's family learns she may be expelled, they urge her to apologize to Junpyo. On her way to practice, Jan-di runs into him. She tells him they have to win. When he asks why she's choosing Ji-hoo, Junpyo pulls her into a desperate embrace and tells her it's not too late. All she has to do, he says, is tell him she likes him, just once. Jan-di finds herself standing at a crossroads, torn between pride and emotion, and in that moment, she simply cannot bring herself to say yes. It is not because she does not care, and it is not because she lacks courage. Instead, it is because she wants to win, desperately so, and she refuses to allow her emotions to weaken her resolve or give Junpyo the upper hand. Her stubborn pride mirrors Junpyo's almost perfectly, as if the two of them are reflections of the same fire, burning with the same intensity but pointed in opposite directions. Junpyo, however, does not take her refusal lightly. The disappointment is clear on his face, and with wounded pride of his own, he coldly tells her that from this moment on, he will no longer protect her, leaving those words hanging heavily between them. And so, the games continue. On the day of the race, the atmosphere is electric, buzzing with anticipation and judgment. The tardy trio makes an exaggerated entrance, proudly doubling as Team Junpyo's cheerleaders, dressed head to toe in an aggressively loud shade of pink that seems designed to mock rather than support. The crowd is already convinced of the outcome. After all, how could Team Ji-hoo possibly win when Jan-di, a girl with no professional athletic background, is expected to swim against trained boys? No matter how much the narrative tries to convince anyone otherwise, the odds seem laughably stacked against her. Junpyo sits quietly by the poolside, watching with an unreadable expression, while Jae-yul stands beside him, an odd sight considering she should technically be rooting for Team Ji-hoo. It feels like a betrayal of loyalty, though perhaps her growing closeness to Lee-young has blurred the lines of allegiance. Nearby, Jun-hee observes the scene as well, notably without her usual dramatic flair, silently taking in everything that unfolds. The race begins with Ji-hoo and Woo-bin diving in first, cutting cleanly through the water. Ji-hoo quickly gains a slight lead, his movements calm and efficient, before tagging Jan-di to take over. When Lee-young jumps in next, his entry is far less graceful, the splash loud and painful looking, as though even the water resists him. Still, determination drives him forward. Jan-di and Lee-young soon find themselves neck and neck, each stroke filled with urgency, each breath carrying the weight of everything at stake. As they reach the final stretch, both stretch their arms toward the wall at the same time. And then, suddenly, everything goes dark. The blackout feels almost surreal, echoing the ominous prediction Jan-di's boss once joked about, making it seem as though fate itself has intervened. When the lights finally return, Jun-hee notices something. Junpyo is no longer in his seat. Her eyes follow a figure walking away, and it does not take long for her to realize the truth. It was Junpyo who turned off the lights. Rather than being angry, Jun-hee smiles knowingly, recognizing that her younger brother has finally learned something important about loyalty, friendship, and sacrifice. After the race, Jun-hee officially puts an end to the expulsion threat, declaring the entire ordeal over. There are no objections, though Lee-young's expression suggests unresolved feelings. As Jun-hee leaves, Lee-young approaches Jan-di, congratulating her sincerely for her effort. He shakes her hand, casting a brief glance at Jae-yul before suddenly walking over and punching Ji-hoo in the stomach. The girls are stunned, unsure of how to react, until Lee-young casually smiles and suggests they go check on Junpyo. Woo Bin follows with a friendly pat on Ji-hoo's shoulder, and Ji-hoo, ever composed, simply smiles back. In that moment, F4 feels whole again. Not long after, Ji-hoo asks Jandy out on a date, quietly and sincerely. Back at Junpyo's house, Lee-young and Woo Bin find him alone, playing with a toy robot and muttering about paying someone back. They joke that he might be suffering from emotional trauma, but Junpyo soon drifts into a memory from his childhood. Ji-hoo once owned a wooden robot, a gift from his late father, and Junpyo had wanted it so badly that he took it without thinking. The toy fell into the street and was crushed by a passing car, leaving Ji-hoo devastated. Since then, Junpyo has carried the weight of that guilt. This time, he chooses not to destroy what Ji-hoo cares about. Instead, he steps back, believing that handing Jandy over is the right thing to do. Lee-young and Woo Bin are visibly proud of him, celebrating his emotional growth in their own ridiculous ways. Yet the next day, Junpyo hides beneath his sheets while Ji-hoo and Jandy go on their first date. Lee-young and Woo Bin visit him just to tease him, turning the moment into a playful pillow fight that briefly lifts his spirits. Jandy initially looks genuinely happy during the horseback ride, smiling freely as the wind rushes past her. But as the date continues, her excitement fades. Ji-hoo grows distant again, retreating into his familiar brooding silence. He brings her to the place where she once shared her first date with Junpyo, intentionally or not, triggering memories she cannot ignore. From afar, Junpyo watches them, quietly suffering, sipping coffee from the vending machine that somehow tastes perfect simply because it reminds him of her. Ji-hoo takes Jandy on a tram ride next, the same one she once shared with Junpyo overnight. There, she notices a scribble etched into the corner, boldly declaring Junpyo and Jandy's first night together. The sight overwhelms her, choking her with emotions she is not ready to face. At Ji-hoo's grand home, Jandy begins to understand the truth. Seo-hyun's presence lingers everywhere, silent but undeniable. When Ji-hoo tries to kiss her, she avoids it, instinctively realizing that she can never replace the woman who still owns his heart. Their conversation drifts toward love and letting go, but Ji-hoo's words ring hollow, heavy with unresolved feelings. Outside, Junpyo waits, unaware that Jandy has already left, missing her by mere moments. Ji-hoo later admits, even to himself, that he is not over Seo-hyun and that his actions may have been driven by guilt rather than love. The tension explodes during an ice hockey match, where Ji-hoo deliberately provokes Junpyo by belittling Jandy. Enraged, Junpyo abandons the game entirely, chasing Ji-hoo across the rink. The fight that follows is brutal, messy, and emotional, ending only when words finally break through Junpyo's anger. Though hurt, he begins to understand the truth. Meanwhile, Jandy is brooding about Junpyo when she gets a call from Junpyo's cell. But it's not Junpyo. It's Lee-young, calling to ask for Ga-eul's number, tell her that Junpyo has been in an accident and is in the hospital. Jandy rushes over to see Junpyo unconscious. Woo Bin is sitting by his bedside, going, "Oh Junpyo, don't leave us, how could you?" Jandy herself gets all emotional and teary for quite a while and sobs over Junpyo, saying how she wanted to say she liked him the day before the swimming. At this moment, Junpyo opens his eyes, takes off his silly oxygen mask and says, "Really?" with his silly cheeky smile. Jandy is horrified. It's a trick? Everyone is happy and Lee-young excited points out like a little boy that Jandy was in such a rush to get to the hospital that she wore a shoe on one foot and a slipper on another. But it was so cute to see Junpyo in the hospital bed looking so silly and happy. He asks Jandy to say she likes him, but she pounces on him with one hand on his mouth, and proceeds to smack him a few times. The next day, Jandy goes out for a jog and realizes that they are weird men in suits following her. Junpyo then shows up to kidnap her to go play golf with him. The golf scene was kind of hilarious. Not knowing how to play is one thing, but swinging the golf club at bystanders could turn out to be assault and battery. Okay. Jandy and Junpyo were at this fancy restaurant for dinner where Jandy ran into the tardy trio and their boyfriends while going back to take away their leftovers. The tardy boyfriends laugh at Jandy for having to eat scraps, then Junpyo shows up and taunts them. He apologizes to Junpyo, but Junpyo told him he's apologizing to the wrong person. The tardy boyfriend says he's sorry, then Junpyo leaves with Jandy. They then share another moment in the car, while they were watching the movie. It was a very cute scene where you have two teens with raging hormones in a car, not knowing what to do. Just as Junpyo leans in to kiss Jandy, her phone rings. After that awkward near kiss, Jandy tries to avoid Junpyo over the next few days. However, Junpyo is not an easy person to avoid. In the spur of the moment, he shows up at Jandy's house late at night. Her brother opens the door, and shuts it in his face again. Junpyo asked if he could stay the night with Jandy's family. They're only too happy to have him, and Mummy dresses him up in pajamas which are too short for him. The trouser were too short for his legs too, but Junpyo obviously has a godlike complex, which allows him to look confident still in the photo above. Daddy and little bro tried to follow Junpyo's new trend too by folding up their pants and looking silly. They spent the night sleeping in the same room. Junpyo slept between little bro and daddy, and he had this silly smile on his face all the time while he wasn't sleeping. He told Jandy that the bathroom in his house is bigger than their bedroom. It's really sweet to see Junpyo getting in touch with his family values too. The next morning, he wakes up to a strange sound that immediately irritates him, loud whispers bouncing around the room, overlapping voices that feel far too close for comfort. Half asleep and clearly annoyed, he reaches for his phone out of habit, ready to summon his butler and complain, only to freeze when reality finally catches up to him. This is not his house. These are not his walls. And the people whispering so shamelessly are not his staff. They are Jandi's family. The realization hits him all at once, and for a brief moment, the mighty Gu Junpyo looks completely lost. Instead of storming out or retreating into his pride, something unexpected happens. Junpyo decides to stay. Not just stay, but participate. He throws himself into Jandi's family routine with awkward enthusiasm, determined to experience life as a normal person, even if it feels completely foreign to him. He helps make kimchi with them, clumsy and inexperienced, yet strangely sincere in his effort. It is one of the rare moments where Junpyo looks stripped of his arrogance, replaced by genuine curiosity and warmth. Then comes the public bath outing with Jandi's father and little brother, an experience that clearly exists to remind everyone that Junpyo is, in fact, still very much Junpyo. He tries a little too hard to keep his composure, awkwardly sucking in his stomach and maintaining dignity in a place that allows none. Still, despite the comedic undertone, the moment feels oddly intimate. He laughs, eats absurd amounts of fish cake, and watches Jandi's father stare at him in horror as he devours stick after stick like a starved child. Somewhere along the way, Junpyo stops pretending and starts enjoying himself. While Junpyo is bonding with her family, Jandi finds herself overwhelmed by her own thoughts. All her recent avoidance, all the emotional confusion, finally catches up with her. She heads to the pool to clear her mind, hoping the water will quiet her heart. Instead, she runs into Jihur. Calm as ever, he gently nudges her toward honesty, telling her not to fear Junpyo and not to run from her feelings. When he notices her wet hair, he wordlessly places his beanie on her head, a small but tender gesture meant to protect her from catching a cold. Back with F4, Junpyo is restless. He pretends to be engaged, but his attention is fixed on his phone. He is waiting for Jandi to call. He convinces himself she owes him that much after everything, though even he can't fully explain why. Woo Bin suggests he should just call her, but Lee Young, ever the expert in emotional games, warns him that the first call is surrender. Junpyo listens a little too well. When Jandi finally does call, he pretends not to know who she is, putting on an act so stiff and cold that even Lee Young and Woo Bin cringe. Lee Young openly tells him it's embarrassing to be associated with him, and for once, Junpyo knows he's crossed a line. Jandi later asks Junpyo out on a double date with Jia Yul and her boyfriend. Junpyo scoffs at the idea, but curiosity wins. He wants to see how ordinary people date. More importantly, he wants to spend time with Jandi. Lee Young, clearly intrigued by the mention of Jia Yul's boyfriend, immediately offers to take Junpyo's place if he refuses, and his jealousy barely disguised. From the moment the date begins, Jia Yul's boyfriend raises red flags. He shows up late, unapologetic, openly rude, and laughs at Junpyo without realizing who he's mocking. Dinner only makes things worse. The man insults Junpyo, laughs at his unfamiliarity with certain foods, and calls him an idiot. Junpyo clenches his fist, ready to explode, but chooses to walk away instead, swallowing his pride for Jandi's sake. Ice skating brings a brief return to happiness. Jandi and Junpyo laugh, stumble, and genuinely enjoy themselves, until the boyfriend interrupts again. When the two men leave to get coffee, the boyfriend drops his mask entirely. He admits he isn't serious about Jia Yul, mocks Jandi, and implies Junpyo deserves better. That is the breaking point. Junpyo snaps, unleashing everything he has held back, defending Jandi with his fists. He would have endured every insult directed at himself, but hurting her was unforgivable. Jandi is furious when she sees the aftermath. Junpyo doesn't explain himself, and the night ends bitterly. Once again, Jandi returns to the pool, sick now, sneezing and shivering. Jihu appears again, scolding her gently and giving her something warm to help. Even when she doesn't mention Junpyo, his name slips into every sentence. Jihu listens quietly, then reminds her that Junpyo's actions rarely come without reason. Determined to protect Jia Yul, Jandi tracks down the boyfriend and overhears him laughing with another girl, calling Jia Yul ugly and obsessive. That is the final straw. Jandi confronts him head-on, delivering a flying kick and a punch without hesitation. She then tells him that one was for Jia Yul, and the other was for her boyfriend. She then tells him to get lost. Jia Yul tells Jandi to go look for Junpyo to apologize, while she stays alone to wallow. This is a great opening for Lee Young to come in. And then we see Lee Young in his car talking on the phone about some woman, and he was a bit choked up after talking on the phone. He goes to this place, which is his father's pottery school, where he spies on his dad making out with some woman and gets all angst-looking. He then waits for the lady to come out to flirt with her a little, and tells her that she's his fourth girlfriend. She looked surprised when he interrupted her actually. Or maybe, Lee Young is really only a playboy so that he can mess with women enough to make daddy realize his own playboy ways? So while Lee Young is all angst and sad, Who better to run into than Ga Yul? He does see her wandering about looking sad, and he was going to just go past her. But then he scratches his head and thinks, no, I can't leave her alone. Or more like, he needs a distraction from daddy/girl issues. When Ga Yul breaks down crying in front of him, Young panics, embarrassed, flustered, and completely unprepared. He begs her to stop as people stare, his awkward concern revealing far more than his words ever could. Meanwhile, Jandy finally confronts Junpyo. He pretends to be distant, insisting he won't forgive her easily. She apologizes in her own way, offering him an apple and agreeing to grant him 3 wishes within 60 seconds. The moment is chaotic, funny, and intimate, with Junpyo suddenly desperate and flustered, racing against time as Jandy watches him with a smile. Young gives Ga Yul a full makeover and brings her to a club where her ex is partying. He performs on stage, playing the saxophone for the girl who stole his heart, letting everyone misunderstand who he means. The revenge is subtle, elegant, and unmistakably Young. Later Junpyo takes Jandy to a playground illuminated by soft lights. He talks about family, about wanting to make kimchi again, about finally understanding what it means to belong somewhere. Then he kneels in front of her, vulnerable and sincere, asking if he can come back to her house, not as Gu Junpyo, but as someone who wants to be part of her life. He kisses her, and this time, she doesn't pull away. But here's the problem. This kiss doesn't erase Jihur. It doesn't erase the confusion in Jandy's heart. And it definitely doesn't erase the war that's coming. Because loving Junpyo means standing against his world. And choosing Jihur means breaking Junpyo completely. So the real question isn't who she kissed. It's who she will choose when love finally demands a price. If you want to find out what happens next, when feelings turn into consequences, subscribe, like, and drop a comment. Do you think Jandy belongs with Junpyo? Or Jihoo? The next episode will unveil everything.